Blue Beetle's a movie that will release and be forgotten. I have seen virtually no hype on social media, and most of the talk surrounding it has been negative, but now it looks like it will lose a giant amount of money during its theatrical run because early box office predictions are a complete and utter disaster for Warner Brothers Discovery. I have a few different things to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content that I create, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Follow me on social media so that you can see when my content is posted, and of course, if you do really enjoy the videos and the live streams that I create, please consider becoming a Dark Titan via Patreon or a supporter via YouTube memberships. So starting off with this Bounding into Comics article, Blue Beetle early box office predictions are a complete and utter disaster for Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav, James Gunn, and their DC universe. Now, I never expected this movie to do amazing because, let's be honest, there has been zero hype surrounding this film, and with the initial trailer that we saw, it really turned a lot of comic book fans off after the "Batman's a fascist" line. It just seems that this was going to be another movie that was going to be filled with narratives that wasn't going to be all that unique, and I just feel like any sort of audience they would have for this film are just not as interested in it as they could be after that teaser trailer. But this has some serious competition at the box office. Now, this doesn't release for a few more weeks, but a lot of the giant summer films have already released, and let's be honest, who's gonna go and see Blue Beetle instead of seeing something like Oppenheimer or Mission Impossible, right? Even just looking at other films besides those two, you've got things like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which has to come out. Dial of Destiny will still be in theaters at that point, even though I don't think many people who haven't seen it already are going to go and see it. You also have Barbie, which, again, is a controversial movie since it's filled with feminist messaging, but you have such massive films at the box office. Who's really gonna go and see Blue Beetle? It says, though, early box office projections are here for the upcoming Blue Beetle film, and they look to be utter nightmare fuel for Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav, James Gunn, Peter Safran, and their DC universe. Another major reason why I do not think people are going to go and see this is because we don't know the state of the DCU right now. We have seen people like James Gunn, Peter Safran come out and say that they are trying to basically reset everything, that they want to go in a different, new, unique direction for the DCU, and that, uncertainty paired with the, bad superhero film fatigue that's going on right now, I just think it's a recipe for disaster. It says Box Office Pro predicts the film will only bring in between 12 million and 17 million in its opening domestic weekend. The outlet further notes the film will only gross between 27 million and 55 million in its entire theatrical run. These are some of the worst numbers you could imagine for a film of this caliber because, again, let's be honest, this is a movie that is part of the DCU. It is a film that should be bringing in big audiences, especially when you look at how much is on the line with this movie. I mean, this film has, as far as we know, a $120 million budget, meaning they need to make like $300 to $350 million for it to be considered successful. And these numbers that we are hearing from Box Office Pro show a very different picture. It says, to put this in context, The Flash had an opening weekend of 55 million domestically. It's gone on to gross 107 million domestically, with its time in theaters quickly coming to an end. And The Flash is another movie that they expected to do fantastically, and it is doing terribly. It is just a movie that people did not find, a lot of enjoyment in. It says Shazam! Fury of the Gods had a domestic opening weekend of 30 million. The film ended its domestic run at 57.6 million. Black Adam, now a seemingly bright spot despite still being a financial failure, had a domestic opening weekend of 67 million and went on to gross 168.1 million. So all of these films to recently release for them have been, failures, have been flops, have been complete and utter disasters for them. Again, I don't think that it's superhero fatigue in general, because I do think that people would still go to the theaters to see a very good, very hyped up superhero movie that wasn't filled to the brim with messaging or, mediocre CGI, mediocre acting. I do think that people are just tired of bad superhero films. But, these numbers paint a very bad picture for them. It says not only does it look like Blue Beetle will vastly underperform the last 3 DC films, it's likely to lose a significant amount of money if its predictions hold true. Like I mentioned, a $120 million budget means they need to make over $300 million for it to be considered successful. And these are just predictions, right? Predictions sometimes, go higher, sometimes they even go lower. Typically, the first round of predictions are overestimates. But with how just low these are, I don't think they could really go much lower here. It also says with a 55 million domestic run, that means it needs to bring in at least 245 million internationally. And I just do not see that happening with this movie. Even the largest films, again, things like Flash did not really pull internationally. The international box office is kind of a rough place right now, especially for superhero films. It says The Flash only took in 160 million internationally, and Shazam! Fury of the Gods capped out at 74 million internationally, and Black Adam did 223.1 million internationally. So it needs to do better than even Black Adam internationally. I just do not see a way that that is going to happen. And again, keep in mind, this movie already has a lot of controversy surrounding it. I have discussed it in other videos, but the Blue Beetle director completely changed their tune and asked moviegoers to give the film a chance after mocking them over Batman's "a fascist" line. This is the number one way to kill your movie, is to attack and mock people, and that's what they did. And now they're starting to beg consumers to come back and actually give us a chance. It was just supposed to be a funny line, even though we're hearing that there is a lot of narrative-based storytelling in this, we'll call it. Blue Beetle is now being described as a love letter to the multiple ways of being Latino and an epic celebration of diversity. And I've said it a million times, and I'll say it a million more. Diversity, inclusivity are all great things, and I am perfectly fine with seeing a, diverse cast of characters in a movie, do not get me wrong. But if that's really the only thing your movie's got going for it, you are in for a hell of a time. And it just seems like that's what they really focused on with this film, is putting in lines like Batman's a fascist, and they are now promoting it as an epic celebration of diversity. Ultimately, I don't really care if this movie fails, because it's not a movie that I really had a lot of excitement for. I didn't really have a lot of hype behind it, and after the Batman line, I just figured, oh no, this is gonna be another flop that, people are probably not going to enjoy. And, well, it seems like the early box office predictions are a complete and utter disaster, meaning another failure for David Zaslav, James Gunn, and their DC universe. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this and of course found it important and informative, please make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.